You thought that it'd be easy, check things off the list and you'd be happy. But here you are nearing 30, even more restless than before. I wrote my first song when I was 5. I spent the next 20 years trying to find anything else to be good at. Until, at about 25, I ended up as the world's worst receptionist in Seattle and realized that if I was going to get paid shit money, I should do something that I was good at. So I quit my job. And for a while, it was great. And then it was like Wile E. Coyote looking down and realizing that there's no ground underneath it anymore. And I failed in the most emotionally and financially stressful manner possible. And then I did what every good musician does, and I ran from my feelings. And it was while I was in this state of trying to do anything to feel better that for whatever reason, this weird story that a mentor had told me a couple years ago, set in Norway, came to mind. And it's about a girl that marries a polar bear. And one night, she decides that she wants to make sure that it's not really a polar bear that's sleeping next to her, and she sneaks in a candle. And it turns out that by trying to make sure that she's not sleeping with an animal, she's triggered this awful curse where what turns out to be a prince has to go and marry a troll, which is a fate worse than death in Norwegian folklore. And so the castle is disappearing, and she's grabbing onto him. She says, "I'm going to go rescue you." And he's like, "Yeah, that's not going to happen. But just in case, I'm going to be east of the sun, west of the moon. Good luck." And everything disappears. Not really knowing how to get east of the sun, west of the moon, she goes to the nearest neighbor and says, "Hey, do you know how to get to the Troll Queen's castle?" And she says, "Yeah, you're never going to make it, but here's this gold thing I have lying around, and try the neighbor." And the next neighbor has another gold thing, and sends her to the next neighbor who has another gold thing, who sends her to the east wind, who sends her to the south wind, who sends her to the west wind, who sends her to the north wind, who actually blows her all the way to this castle, only to discover that the prince has been drugged. Thankfully, she has all those gold things tucked away with which to bribe herself into the castle. And so she's crying over the prince, trying to get him to wake up so she can rescue him, and he doesn't, but there's people nearby who let him know. And then finally, they come up with this plan, because he has this shirt she got candle wax on, and trolls are known as not clean creatures. And so he says, "I can't marry you unless you can clean my shirt." And she can't. And the trolls are so angry, they all explode. Which then leaves the polar bear prince and the princess with 2 whole kingdoms and not a whole lot of stress. So there's a couple things that I learned from this story. The first one is to just move forward. When the shit's hitting the fan, we want to run for the shower, when we should start with turning off the fan. For me, this meant getting out of bed and putting on clothes and checking Craigslist. The next very important lesson that I learned, and this is, if anybody's an artist or any kind of a creative, this is essential. People don't have to believe in you to help you. I, much like the hero in that fairy tale, heard "you're never going to make it" fairly often. But there was sometimes some good advice right after that, or at least a free meal. So in the face of cynicism, pay attention to what's going to help you get to your next goal, and just ignore the rest. Finally, and most importantly, what I learned from this weird little fairy tale is that failure is an invitation to adventure. In fact, thank you. In fact, it's your failure that's going to prepare you for success. If I had gotten everything that I wanted, maybe I would have had a couple more, money at all in the bank. But because I failed, I have been flown across the country to sing at conferences, I have met amazing people, and I have been prepared to accept what happens with me with grace, and I've written some pretty good songs. Broken bones get stronger, broken hearts grow larger, security's a fantasy, so walk into the woods with me and we'll see where these dreams take us, past all we thought might break us, into the heart of darkness, carrying a spark of light, carrying a spark of light. Thank you.